Okay, this is an attempted recording to show you what to do with all the data after doing the scan stuff. Um, I hope you can hear me. My microphone's being a little stupid. But yeah, so after you run all the samples on scan and you have your thing filled out, um, these are the steps you do once you've stuck the green USB into the USB ports on the scan console, and you've downloaded the data, and you've shut everything down. You go to a computer that has access to Box, and this is what you do. Let's see, I'm going to share my screen. So you're going to need a couple things open, not Reddit. That's optional for afterwards, I guess. But so you're going to want to put the green USB in and go to results, lab unit Abbott. Then you're going to make sure it's sorted by date modified, and you're going to go to the day that you are entering the data in for. It's typically the most recent one, but I'm going to do some of the stuff that we did for Synoptic that's already been input, and that was the stuff for the 30th, or on the 20th, that was run on the 20th. So you want to open the file that does not have FP or log at the end. It's the shortest one. Double click on that, and it will open. And so here it is. And then you're also going to want to go to Abbott Lab, data, scan downloads lab, and open the MasterScan sheet. And that'll open up this this CSV that has all of the scan data that we have done up to date. And if you go all the way to the bottom, here's the most recent stuff that's been run. The stuff I'm looking at is all of the stuff that was done on 320. And then, actually, let's do 321. That's a better example. So I'm going to go back here. I'm going to open up the 321. Cool. And then all of the data has already been put in. But I'm going to copy it all over real quick. Oops. To a new sheet, just to show you what everything looks like, and to save some time. Yeah, so you've got the MasterScan open. This is where you'll be inputting the formulas and all the data and the sort chem and date and timestamp, and this is the dilution factor. I'm actually going to go to the top and catch all of these as well. Cool. So what you're going to do is first, like, pretend this is the MasterScan, and this is a new day, and you're just going to enter it in right here under the um, the last results that were run. You're going to start by typing out all of the sort chems. So there's two ways to do all of this. In the end, you can either manually type everything out, or you can manually type one or two parts and then do some uh, minor Excel stuff and then copy and paste the rest of the stuff in. When we're doing just like small amounts, like anywhere from like 1 to like 10 samples isn't bad to just type in. But especially for synoptic, like this was for, there's like up to 70 sites. And so we want to make sure it's a little more accurate doing it this way for synoptic, and it saves a lot of time instead of having to type in manually every single row of, like every single column of all the like 70, 80 sites that we have done on that synoptic day. So I'm saving some time by just copying all the sort chems and putting them in here. This is the one thing that you do need to type out manually for every single one, is all of these sort chems. Secondly, you're going to put the date on here. And so this was run on 3/20, so we would do 3/20, no, it's the 21st, 2021. And then you can copy that and paste it all the way down. Then from here on out, all of these values right here correspond with the values we write down on the scan data sheet when we're running the scan bottles. And all of this data is also stored in the file that we export from the scan console. So that's where we don't technically have to type everything out manually. If you do type it out manually, we're supposed to go into this file anyway and double check that everything was right. And so like that's not that bad for, like I said, like small quantities of samples being run. But otherwise it is easier and more accurate, less human error involved if we just do it this other way. So the first thing, once you've gotten all of this stuff taken care of, I go through, well, all right, so there's time, turbidity, all the way to DOC. These columns are when we used to run the YSI at the same time as the scan right after synoptic, but we're not doing that anymore because the values just aren't really that accurate after being in the cooler all day. So we're not really doing those anymore. Dilution factor is typically 1, unless we need to dilute any of the samples. It doesn't happen very frequently, but I chose this 3/21 because there were 2 samples that did get diluted. And then if a sample's been frozen or something, we write that on the label. We don't intentionally freeze them, but sometimes it just gets so cold under all of the bottles that they do freeze. And so in those cases, we'll write frozen on the bottle, and then that should get transferred to the sheet where we write down everything, and then eventually to right here. And then this is the timestamp from the scan console. And so originally, what we're supposed to do is like take this time that we've written down and compare it to the timestamp, and correct this time if the timestamp says otherwise. But it's more accurate and easier to just bring in the timestamp, transfer it over here, transfer the time from the timestamp over here and then move forward. So that's the part that I'm going to do next, is do this timestamp part. So you need to go to the shortest file name of the date for the scan files that it exports. And we need to do a little bit of data cleaning right here because it's not really in a usable form, even though it has all the data that we need. So you're going to go and highlight the entire column and then go to data, then do text to columns. And so now you can see that all of these have semicolons in between each of these different values. And that's called a delimiting character. And so that's what we're trying to distinguish between each column, is this semicolon. And so we're going to go to, it's a delimited file type, so you click delimited, you click next, and then it automatically defaults to tab, but we're looking at semicolons here. So you click semicolon, and you can see that all of this starts to give you a preview of what it'll look like, and that looks right. So you just hit finish. And after that, it gives you all the values between the semicolons in separate columns. And that's exactly what we want. So for this timestamp column right here, what you want is to go in this first column and copy all of these timestamps and then paste them in here. And if you double click the border between the two columns, it'll size it out automatically so that it's not the pound symbols. So now we have this, the timestamp that the sample was run at. One thing you want to make sure is if you do have to rerun something during your scan, like if it wasn't diluted but needed to be diluted, so you did a second run, you need to come down and, well, make sure that it all matches. What is up with this? 16, 15. I'm wondering if this is the right one or not. All right, so that goes 48. It was run on the 20th. Where am I going? I am here. So this is a good example. If something doesn't line up, like there's only this amount of timestamps for this date, it does look like something is missing here, because these were all of the ones run on this date, but they only match up to this many samples, which doesn't seem correct. So in that case, you want to go to your record, and you want to look at the sort chems and the times that they were run, and then based off of those, you can sort of see which ones are there and which ones are missing. So I'm going to go back, and so looking at the physical record, 1615 was the last one run of that day, and 0079 was the last sample run that day, for this event at least. And then the beginning of that run was 0108 and 1518. So that seems correct. There's just these sort chems right here that are a little bit out of place. Let me see if I can see any of the sort chems on the physical sheet. Okay. So it looks like these ones, 0184. Yeah, it looks like these ones were run on the 20th. So I'm going to see if they appear twice in the MasterScan. So it was 0033. Let's see, 21. It was how many of the last 21 on the 21st? Get this zoom thing out of the way. So the last 12. So if we go 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. No, we need to go to MasterScan. So 21st, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. These were all also brought over. Except that is the correct yeah, that's the correct stuff. So if we go back, those samples were actually run on the 20th. Here they are. So it's these samples. So the fun fact about the scan thing, when we write down the time that the sample is run, it's not actually the current time in our time zone or whatever. The scan log sort of just does its own thing. Yeah, I'm not sure why these copied over, honestly. Oh, that's why. When I changed it over from the 20th to the 21st, they were stuck at the end. All right. So yeah, this shouldn't happen. So sorry about all of this excess stuff that wasn't actually a real problem. But in any case, like you do want to make sure that the timestamps do line up with the sort chems that we've input, because sometimes we do run a sample more than once, and so there's going to be more timestamps than there are sort chem entries. And so you just want to make sure that you are aware of which timestamp is the actual one for the real run in the case of rerunning a sample. And so if that were the case, you would just like delete this one if it were the first run and not the second real run, and then you would just move everything up. But everything's looking good now. And so we've got this taken care of. Now we need to get this time column filled out. And to do that, you do an Excel command. It's similar to the octalong if you've ever done that. So you do equals text, and then you want to click on this timestamp value. And then you want to put in hour, minute, hit enter. And that'll transfer all of these times from this timestamp over here. And then you can just double click that box in the bottom right corner, and it'll bring all of the times over here. And so that can save a lot of time in typing stuff in. After you've made the function and stuff, you need to copy it all. And then you're going to right click the top and then go right here to paste special values, or paste options, paste the special, paste the values. It used to be called a special paste, but you want to just paste the values, and that changes this from the function that used to be there to just the value that the function produced. So now all of these are just the times, as you can see right here, whereas they used to be these text functions. And so it won't cause us problems later on. So I'm going to change that back. So that is all good. And now we need to enter in all of these data. So we come back over to the scan export, the raw scan data. And so we have the values turbidity, NO3, TOC, and DOC right here. We can copy all of these columns all at once and then put them in here at once. Or you can copy each column individually and paste them in individually. It doesn't take that, it doesn't, there's not a big time difference. Like you can just copy this, paste it, and then go on to the next one, which is probably the easiest way. Or the way I've done it in the past is if you hit Control Shift down, that highlights all of that column. But if I'm trying to highlight all the other columns at the same time, before you click anywhere else, press Control and then click on the next column, and then hold Control Shift and then press down again. And then you just repeat that, hold Control and click, then Control Shift down, then Control click, Control Shift down, and that has all the columns that we need. And then you can press Control C to copy, and you come over here. And even though there are different columns in between these ones right here, when you paste it in, it automatically truncates them to all being right next to each other. And so that gets all of our values into the spots that we need. And we ignored these values, so now we just have the dilution factors. Dilution factors will be recorded manually on the scan, in the scan notebook. And so we are going to look to see if any of them are noted. Generally, they're not noted unless it's 1. The default is 1. If we don't add any nanopure to it to dilute it, it's just a dilution factor of 1. But in this case, there were 2 that needed to be diluted. So normally, if there's no dilution, you just do 1, type 1, you copy it, and you paste it across the whole thing. And then you'd be fine. In this case, I copy and paste 1, and then I look for the specific sort chems that had a different dilution factor. So I'm looking for 2021 114. So it's right there. And so I'm going to come over here and press 2, because that's the dilution factor for that one. And then I'm looking for 2021 0013. Then I come over and put a 2 right there. And yeah, that's basically it. All of the data is input. This would typically, again, be over here in the MasterScan. But we can see all of this data matches what we just did. You can see the 2 dilution factors. right there, our input. And yeah, if there are any notes, there were some notes for the ones run a couple days later. There were some that had gotten frozen, so they just put frozen right there. Sometimes the bottles get filtered for the scan when they're not supposed to. I think we've pretty much gotten on top of that, but yeah, so you just put any notes right there. And then everything's put in, you double checked everything, you just hit save, and then you're good to go. So that's the unnecessary one. Once you're done with the master scan, you saved it and exited out. You can reopen it and double check that everything's saved. Sometimes it does freak out and doesn't save, and it's kind of annoying. It's only happened like once or twice to me, but with this scan document, when you go to exit out of it, you don't want it to save. We want this in its raw data file format. So you hit don't save there, and then this is the old one. And that is that. If you have any questions, talk to me or one of the managers. Talk to you later.